Hi everybody and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to talk about the reaver spec for warriors. I haven't really been keeping up with like min-maxing specs and everything, but I can tell you that this is a good enough spec for dungeons and probably for raiding as well. I mean, I've been raiding with it and it's fine. Um, I don't have the best stats. Uh, I still have blues. So obviously my DPS isn't awesome as other people's is. But anywho, so today let's look at the reaver. And so for reavers, the soul tree looks a little bit like this. Now you're going to choose 61 reaver with Shadow of Dread as one of your legendaries. Now, Shadow of Dread applies all known reaver damage over time effects, including dire corruption. So the way that it works is it passively causes your reaver damage over time effects to tick 3 times as fast, but last 50% less time and deal 25% less damage. So to me, it doesn't sound amazing. I don't like this legendary version. I like how it used to be that, everything was fine and dandy. You didn't have a lot of um, but you also have that. So, I liked the old Shadow of Dread, but it's the legendary version that's everybody loves. I don't, but everybody loves it. Anywho, and also your other legendaries that you're going to choose are Dire Corruption. Corrupts the target for 21 seconds. The target and enemies within 7 meters take blah blah death damage over the duration, and it awards 1 attack point. Now, like I said, Dire Corruption has a long cooldown, 1 minute, but Shadow of Dread interacts with this. Like, it makes it work. Yeah. And then you have Viral Stream, also a 21-second cooldown. It channels Bloody Blah death damage over 0.25 seconds. Oh, okay. Yeah, it ticks damage every 0.25 seconds for 3 seconds to the target. So it's actually better than the old normal version. The damage is increased by 20% for each reaver damage over time effect on the target. So you have to have your dots, otherwise it's not going to have great damage. Yeah, and also what's great about this legendary version is that the old viral stream is back where you can move while channeling. When Reaver was first introduced as a DPS spec, because remember Reaver used to be a tanking spec, and then they changed it to DPS in Nightmare Tide. Everybody hated that, but then they were like, oh, it's like amazing damage. And it's kind of a brain dead spec, to be honest. Like, and it's also good, like, when I used to raid, let's say, for example, that Tarkin Glacier raid with Bolf and anybody, Geniscoth. Geniscoth was a terrible, terrible boss for a lot of people. You know why? Because it had so much lag. That boss, I don't know if you ever did raid Geniscoth, but Geniscoth was a boss where you had a lot of particles. It was like a hurricane. You were in a hurricane and there were a lot of particles just floating around you. Not floating, just whizzing around you. And so that took a lot of a lot of energy from your computer. Your CPU would like drop. It was insane. And I was playing on a laptop, so obviously like it was a terrible, terrible boss for me because I remember one time where I basically disconnected every time I would reconnect. So they basically chose me as like an extra healer because Liberator is like overpowered. So they were like, well, you're like your hots, your heals over time are going to help a little bit. So it was like, okay, but just keep in mind, I'm going to like disconnect every 5 seconds after I reconnect. So they were like, that's fine. Your hots are gonna help. So yeah. Just saying, so whenever I didn't disconnect and I could DPS, I would use Reaver. Well, at one point it was the overpowered spec. So yes, every warrior would play reaver, but it was great for me personally because it was great. It was great damage, and if I lagged, it wasn't. It was still great damage. So because it has a very slow global cooldown. So as opposed to Paragon, which is a very fast-paced spec, you have to keep track of everything. You have to keep track of your dots, and you have to keep track of your buffs, and you have to keep track of whatever comes off cooldown, because big cooldowns come off cooldown at different times. So you had to have very very good timing in Paragon. But Reaver is like brain dead. You press one the button number 1 3 times, and then you're like, okay, 3 finisher, and then 2 1 2 3 4 3 2 2 2 3 1 1 1 3 2 2 3 4. So it was very brain dead, to be honest, but it was a good spec. Used to be. Now it's kind of right in the middle, really. But anywho, so your 3 legendaries are Shadow of Dread, Dire Corruption, and Viral Stream. And then you go into Warlord, and you choose 5 of Soldier's Might, 5 of Strength of Arms, and that's it. And then you choose Sergeant's Order, because Sergeant's Order basically brings you more damage. It stuns the target for up to 5 seconds. The stun causes the target to take 100% more damage from the warrior's non-warlord abilities. So non-warlord abilities means that it's great for Reaver, because it's not a warlord. So there you go. And then in champion, you choose 5 of Titan Strength, because it increases your strength by 10%. That's awesome. And then you choose Punishing Blow as your legendary. So this deals physical damage per attack point. So obviously you're going to go for 3 attack points and then hit Punishing Blow as a finisher. It applies a debuff to targets that causes them to take 125% more damage from your area of effects attacks. This bonus is half as effective on Death Blossom. This may only be on one target at a time. So with 3 points, it deals considerably more damage, as usual. So there you go. And then as for macros, like I said, it's a brain dead spec, really. Where's Reaver? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm already in Reaver. So for my button number 1, I called it ST1 because it's a single target 1. And I have number sign show explosive infestation. So it shows me like when this comes off cooldown, so I can know, okay, now I can hit one. So it goes. Number signs show explosive infestation, suppress macrofailures. This causes you to still continue being able to hit your button even if there is an error of like, oh, this is not off cooldown. So because this has a cooldown, you want to have suppress macrofailures, because this is first in the line, and if there is no suppressed macrofailures, then like if this is still in cooldown, you won't be able to hit ravaging strike, for example. So it's much better like that. And then you have cast ravaging strike, cast bull rush. Why? I don't know. Anyway, so cast bull rush, and then I have cast at self power manipulation. I should have this in the bottom at the top here. Whatever. And then I have ST2. I have number sign show Shadow of Dread. Suppress macrofailures, cast at self power manipulation, cast Shadow of Dread, cast infestation, cast flesh rot, cast necrotic wounds, cast soul sickness, and cast ravaging strike. To be honest, I shouldn't even be able to. I shouldn't even have more than just cast infestation. Like you can stop this button at cast infestation and then add like ravaging strike for whatever reason. And then here, finisher, you have show numbers, show punishing blow, suppress macrofailures, cast punishing blow, cast desecrating blow. Now the thing is, I said this punishing blow is like it's not exactly a finisher, it's a buff. It used to be a finisher, but it's a buff, and so it buffs your desecrating blow so that there is more damage to it. And then I have dots. Number show flesh rot, suppress macrofailures, cast flesh rot, cast necrotic wounds, cast soul sickness. And then I have interrupt. Interrupt is here at equal sign. And then I have number show spasm, suppress macrofailure, cast at focus spasm. Like I said before in a previous video, at focus is good for when you're raiding and you have a focus target like this. And I also have a snare, but I don't really use snare that much. Anywho, so the way that it plays is like so. So you can play it at ranged, but it's better to, because of the punishing blow, it's kind of better to have to play at melee, to be honest. So here we go. Let's play 1. I hit 1 3 times, and then 3, and then 2 2 times, 3, and 4, and 3. And then I can hit M4, my mouse button. Here we go. And 3. And then I'm ready to hit 1 again. 1, 3, 2, 2 times, 3, and 4. And then my mouse button. And 3. And back to 1. 1. Here we go. Now, like I said, it's better to hit at melee with the spec for some reason, because as you can see here, my 3 is like red. So it means that it's using desecrating blow and not punishing blow, right? So punishing blow is going to make my DPS much better. So we want to be at melee with the spec. I know it sucks. I mean, reaver is a ranged spec, but because of the punishing blow, we want to be at melee, at least for punishing blow. But anywho, so we can go and press this button, Plaguebringer, which causes my reaver damage over time abilities to affect up to 2 additional abilities, dealing less damage than to the target. So we're going to go and AoE. Okay, and here we go. Pew! DPS everywhere. Wee! Woo! And pew everywhere. DPS everywhere. But, like, the Plaguebringer is going to make it easier to AoE, but it's still, like, Reaver is still a single target spec. It's just, it treats your spec as if it was kind of an AoE spec. So anyways, that's your Reaver, really. There isn't much to it. It's basically wait for your cooldowns, and like all the cooldowns are very different from your Paragon, where it's like, oh my god, free for all, you don't know what you're doing, and you have to keep track of all your cooldowns and everything. No, for this spec, it's basically 1 1 1 3 2 2 3 4 3, and then mouse, like you could basically press 2 again, 2 3 times, and then back to what 4. Anyways, so that's it, really. Reaver is very easy, and I hope you enjoyed. A lot of people hate people who play Reavers. Well, just as an aside, a lot of raiders hate people who play Reaver because they're like, oh, it's such an easy spec and you're brain dead and you don't know how to play this game. I say fuck it. I say fuck them. I mean, play whatever you're comfortable playing. If you're having trouble with another spec and you prefer playing Reaver, go for it. So I end with that, and with that, enjoy yourself. Goodbye.